Hello everybody and welcome to my Meet the Horses vlog. Better late than never. It's been requested loads. You guys want some specific information. You want to know how tall the horses are for starters. So I'm not actually sure. It's always been on guesstimate. I'm wandering around with the trusty old measuring stick. I'll get that information and we'll get into it. Right then, I've just put my measuring stick away. I know how tall everybody is. I've got everybody in. Hello, my darlings. So I've only got 3 stables, so we're improvising and you're on the yard, aren't you, darling? Good boy. And then there's Maggie in there and Beastie there. So let's go through the horses. This has been one of my most requested videos that I haven't got around to doing yet. And I thought, given that it is actually the anniversary of my first vlog, don't eat me, I thought that it was actually quite fitting that I do a bit of a roundup video so that you guys have one place to find the information about the horses and just a good overview, because obviously I chat away about them in the vlogs, assuming that you all know about the horses. And that is not necessarily the case. So shall we get started with you so you can go back out? He says I'm just being a bit special right now. Right then, so let's make a start with Donut. I'm holding on to him because he'll wander off otherwise. This is a guy that if you have seen some of the vlogs, you will probably already know him fairly well. I have had him probably a year and a month now, so he's come quite well in line with the vlogs and how they end up flowing. So there is an introducing him vlog when I first got him, and you kind of get to see his progression throughout, where we've got him and then he's learned to jump and the like. So Donut is 10 this year. I had the measuring stick on him just now. He's a good 16.2, but he's very tall, very leggy. He's a full thoroughbred and I bought him for £1 last year. So you're my £1 horse, aren't you, darling? Basically his owner had some health issues and was no longer able to keep him, and he very kindly gifted him to me for the £1. It wasn't like he was up for sale for that price. With his previous owner he did some hacking, and I think he'd been to a couple of arena hires and a pole clinic, but he hadn't really had time to do huge amounts with him. So he came here as a very, very green 9-year-old. Like if you were comparing him to your normal young horses, I would say he was more like a 4-year-old. And because his body is fully formed, he's managed to progress through very quickly. You're still as annoying as a 4-year-old, aren't you? He says yes. He likes to, you can't see what he's doing to my hand right now. He's just licking it. But he likes to play. He plays with all of the horses over the fence. He's non-stop causing trouble, and he is just the most joyous, loving horse, aren't you? So since we got him, I've taught him to jump. I've done all of his first arena hires, cross-country schoolings, etc. And he did his first event, I think, in August, end of August last year, where he won an 80 unaffiliated. He then qualified himself for the Brigante Cup, and I can't remember where he came there, like 4th or 5th, didn't you? And yeah, he was originally bred to race. He should have been a national hunt horse, so jumping the big hedges in racing. He was bred in Grantham, which isn't very far from where we are. And they trained his brother, from what I can understand. His brother was a little bit useless, and I think they made the decision that they weren't going to keep training Donut either, because he was also not the best, I don't think, from what I can understand. But to be honest, Donut in hand is a very clumsy horse. He'll trip over his own feet quite a lot. It amazes me that he can do what he does out competing and under saddle, but I suppose the clumsiness has given him a very good fifth leg as such. So I assume they've trained him up the gallops, etc., but he didn't even have a official name on his passport. So he is, I wouldn't really call him an ex-racer. He maybe has some of the tendencies, but he's certainly not raced. So Donut's name is also obviously something that comes up in conversation quite a lot. Ooh, Flint's behind the camera. Flinty. I don't quite trust him not to try and push it over. So Donut came with the name of Duncan, and while I was waiting to see his passport, I was a little bit nervous that he might have a silly racehorse name of like Dunkin' Donuts or Dunkin' Donuts because of the play on words. So I went and sat on him and said yes, I would have him, but I had to get a horse collected that I was selling on behalf of some owners, and I was going away with work to Amsterdam to do a pharmacy show. So with that, I was like, he can't come until I've got back from Amsterdam. So I was then mulling it over, panicking about him having this silly name. And for some reason, Donut just stuck before he even came home. And then we got him home, and you stuck your leg in the middle of the electric fence within about 5 minutes of being in the field, didn't you? So I was like, actually, Donut really suits him. And we did try to call him Duncan for a while, but Donut just stuck, didn't it? So fun fact, his real name is actually Duncan. Who names a horse Duncan? I don't know. But we all know and love him as Donut. He then didn't have a name on his passport, so we registered him with his name, which is Zero West, which we called him that because obviously we paid nothing for him effectively, and his owner's surname is West, so we thought that was a fitting attribute because his owner is still in touch and we have become very good friends, and I'm very, very grateful to have this wonderful horse with us. So Donut is now competing at B100, would you believe it? He's made the step up very well. The dressage and the show jumping needs work. The cross country is still green and wiggly, so his aims are to keep the mileage going, but he certainly seems to have scope and bravery to hopefully move up the grades even further. We've had numerous top 10 placings, and so far his best placing at B100 has been a second when we went to Shelford. And yeah, you've got more 100s planned this year, haven't you? And we will see how he goes. But like I say, he's thoroughbred. I've never had a full thoroughbred. It's been very, very interesting training him and very rewarding. I love his temperament. Yes, he's a bit annoying when he decides that he wants to just run and do nothing else, but he is so trainable and he's coming on so well. So we didn't know if he'd be sticking around, but he's certainly not going anywhere for the foreseeable future, and we'll just see how he goes. Let's go see Flinty now before he takes my camera down, because he's just causing havoc just there. And Donut. So to add, Donut's breeding, his sire is a stallion called Samran, who is obviously a thoroughbred because he's a full thoroughbred. But interestingly, that seems to be a fairly decent eventing thoroughbred line. There's a few other horses on the circuit with the same sire, including Bobby Upton's Magic Roundabout, who has Samran, but also warm blood. So he looks very different, except for he's very, very ginger too. So you never know. Are you going to follow in one of your siblings' footsteps? He says, I'd quite like to. Good boy. Okay, so behind me we have wonderful Mr. Flint, who just nearly took my hand off. Naughty. Flinty is my mum's horse. We have had him for... How long have you been with us? A long time. 16 years, I think. I've just done the quick mental math. So I have known Flint since I was 10 years old. And he is a Welsh section D. Donut, calm down, please. And he is 15-1. I've just had the measuring stick on him. and he's 21 years old, if I haven't mentioned that already. He was bred by the Penstrumbly stud, so you've got very good breeding, haven't you? But it also means you've got the loopy breeding in you that makes you look beautiful but makes you a little bit crazy. So he's very, very sharp. Mum got him as a 5-year-old. Nobody had managed to voluntarily get off him at that stage as a 5-year-old, so she completely rebacked him and reschooled him. He's still quite a sharp, spicy ride even now, bless him. If you've seen my camp vlog from last year, I ended up taking him to camp with me, and it was just so fun. I have done some under 18s eventing on him, and he was really good. He hated the dressage, so he would train at all the under 18s levels, but we didn't really get there because back in the day you could only do 100 and novice at it, and he didn't take very well to the firm ground. It made him sore, and that invariably is what happens during the summer in the event season, and he wasn't great with the dressage, so there was no point going and jumping a double clear, making him sore and not getting a placing. So you've stayed as Mum's #1 horse. He's done loads of bits of fun with me, and now I would love to say he is the nanny, but he causes just as much havoc as everybody else. I've just realised he's put a hole in Maggie's door. And you're a troublemaker, but we love you. And he is hilarious. He will untie himself from anywhere. I'm in the wash box because it's windy outside, so I don't want the wind noise for you guys. And honestly, I reckon if he could, he'd be untying that knot at that side. So cross ties is probably a good place for him to be. And yeah, he's probably semi-retired now. Obviously, he got fit and went to camp last year. Mum hacks him occasionally, and I'll hack him occasionally. But as the most part, you have the life of Riley, don't you? And he just plays all day long with Donut across the fence. So he and Donut lived out last year with the field shelters, and you did really well for it, didn't you? He says I created a lot of mud. I love mud. And yeah, we just adore him. He's a wonderful, wonderful character. Causes plenty of trouble and is very loving. And you have to put up with me jumping on your bareback all the time. So that is Mr. Flinty. Oh, and also he's obviously called Flint, and his show name is Penstrumbly Smoking Gun. That's quite a good name, isn't it, mate? It says, yes, please can I go back to my field now? Okay, so those two are safely out now, so they can't cause any more havoc on the yard. Next one along is Miss Maxie. Oh, you didn't even get that in your mouth. So again, a bit like Donut, if you've watched the vlogs, you'll have seen my darling Maggie. She is a 9-year-old, 16-1, aren't you? Chestnut mare. She's an Irish sports horse cross warm blood. So your daddy is Shannondale Sarco, which is it's been quite a popular stallion over the years, obviously Irish breeding. And then she's got Lux Z and can't remember the other one in her breeding. You're very well bred, aren't you? I think your mum's called Olympics Lux, or she's by Olympic Lux. And she's show jumping bred, basically. She was bred by the Grenenstown stud. Her full brother is called Grenenstown Sarco Lux Hill, or for short, his name is Bart. So I'm hoping you're spotting the correlation now. So Maggie and her family, where she ended up, their stable names were named after Simpsons characters. So I think there was a Homer, there was a Bart, and obviously then we got Maggie. And I think if I remember rightly, they said the choices were either Lisa or Maggie. So I'm quite glad they settled on Maggie, because it does suit her. Can you see her little redness on her nose? I need to put a bit more cream on it. I managed to miss a bit, and she got a bit sunburnt the other day, didn't you, baby girl? So yeah, Maggie came from Graham and Holly Smith. The reason that she ended up being sold was that she was going to be too small for Holly, because when we bought her she was probably 15.2, 15.3. She has actually grown a bit in the end. We've had her since she was a rising 4-year-old. She was just lightly backed, you know, walk, trot, canter, steering wasn't a thing, but if you could get yourself pointed at a jump, she jumped to the other side. And she was very weak and poor because she'd just been pulled out of the field where she'd been out as a herd with the other 3-4-year-olds. And you're a wimp, aren't you? Like, for all her sassiness, you would think she's top of the herd, but she's actually bottom of the pecking order when it comes to going in the field. So you're a bit scrawny, weren't you? So we got Maggie, and it was just after I'd broken my ankle, and we didn't actually buy her originally. Graham and Holly let me have her and just school her to put some mileage on her so that I had a second horse coming through to work alongside Titan. Don't be rude. She's getting really excited because I've got treats in my hand. So yeah, and that's sort of it with Maggie. Her brother is jumping 140s with Joe Chunkfield. If you've seen her jump, you know that scope is not an issue. She's quite careful, which is understandable with the show jumper breeding side of it. So she's been very steadily produced through. She did an 80 in her 4-year-old year. You're so naughty. And then she did 90s in her 5-year-old year with me, and then I think we stepped her up to 100 when she was 6. She did do a few 5-year-old Burley Young event horse classes, which is sort of like 105 show jumping. You went to Bramham, didn't you, kid? And then yeah, I think we did her first few hundreds in her 6-year-old year, but if I remember rightly, that coincided with COVID. So then we obviously had a bit of a stop-starty couple of years with that, and now she's very established 100 horse. Her 8-year-old year last year she had completely out. I'll link through the story of her with her colitis, and as I started these vlogs last year, Maggie was just pulling through from being at death's door. So we've had an interesting history, haven't we, darling? And the fact that she's so sassy and tough is why we've still got her stood in the stable, because she fought for her life, didn't you, basically last year? And we were very, very grateful to have her back. And now this year we've done our first novice. I intend on doing more of those, but she's gone a bit suspicious and spooky when going cross country, so we're going to stick at 100 for a little bit longer again now, and then make the step up again in a couple of months. Will you stop being rude? She's just so opinionated. She wants to be here with me, but she doesn't want to stand still. And yeah, that's that. She's very good at dressage. While we couldn't jump, I got her qualified for the BD Nationals this winter. We went to the Nationals, which was a whole new world for me. And I absolutely adore her. She's like the other half of me. So she's very, very important to me. As much as all the horses are important to me, that mare is, I don't know. We've got some it's that mare relationship, I guess. And I absolutely adore her, and she's opened so many doors for me, and I'm so grateful to her, and I hope we get to do more of it. So just to recap, she is a 9-year-old Irish sports horse cross warm blood mare. She's called Darling Deluxe. We named her that. My auntie bought her for me. There we go, that's a bit of information I'd forgotten. So my auntie very kindly bought her for me. I had her in for schooling. I couldn't bear for her to go and get sold. I'd taken her on a hunt amble, and there was a lot of people interested in buying her, and I just suddenly thought, I don't want her to go. So my auntie was planning on helping me get a schoolmaster at something that has been up the grades and was coming back down, you know, just to help produce me through and get myself up the grades. And we weren't really coming up with anything, and in the meantime I had Maggie in. I think this was Graham's master plan all along, to be fair. And lo and behold, we bought her, and I do not regret 1 second of it. She's not easy, she can be tricky, but she has taught me so much for that, and I'm sure that if I ever got a Maggie-esque type through again, I'd be able to streamline her training a lot, because I've now learnt a lot of the skills that I didn't have before we had to learn them with you. So I've been very grateful to learn all of that. So grateful to Sandy for buying her for me, and it's a wonderful situation where she's very supportive, and she's bought Maggie for me, but it's effectively a long-term loan, and Sandy comes and supports us at events. So we're very fortunate, aren't we, little lady? She says, you know, I would be a lot more fortunate if you'd give me more treats, Mum. So I think that is it. We named her Darling because she was so sweet and timid as a 4-year-old. You're not that anymore, are you? You're a beast. You're a beast. So yeah, that is Maxie. Let's go see Titan. Look at you. I'm gutted. I've just got halfway through my chat to you about Beastie here, and I realised that I hadn't pressed record. Oh mate, are you ready? We need to start again. He says, fine Mum, that's fine. So this beautiful specimen of a horse that you are looking at, do you want a treat? He says yes. So you can see just how beautiful he is Titan. You will often hear me refer to him as Beastie, simply a nickname because if he is out of work, he can be really beastly to deal with. You get a bit strong to handle and a bit naughty, don't you? But in work, he is beautiful. You're a good boy, aren't you? Yeah. So Titan was basically a stopgap horse for me. He's 17 now, and we bought him as a 11-year-old. At that time when we were buying him, I had 2 6-year-olds who you've never met. They're not here. They were both, should have been going sort of like high trajectory on going out and competing. As it was, they both were sort of going to Newmarket for a performance workup. So we had this happen. We went to Newmarket. Both horses we found issues with and were needing holidays and rehab. So I just finished like my uni term. I was going on to summer holidays. Yes, you found the treats, haven't you? And I needed a horse to compete. Well, I didn't need one, but it seemed really gutting that I'd spent all winter trying to get ready as well as doing my uni work, and then there was no horse to compete. So my mum very kindly said the same. She was like, you need a horse to compete for the summer. And we didn't have a huge budget, but we put together a criteria for a horse that should have been able to compete all that summer, and then we could sell at the end of the summer when my 6-year-olds were coming back into work properly. And that's where we got you, wasn't it? So the criteria was that we probably wanted a gelding because they were easier to sell on. Wanted it to be a nice size. No, I can ride a 14-2, and I guess we could have sold a 14-2, but we were looking for a horse, so sort of between 15-2 and 16-2. Needed to be a reasonable age that wasn't too old to sell on, ideally single figures, but as you can tell, we looked up to sort of 12-year-olds, and needed to be fit and ready to go. Didn't need to be the finished package because we were never going to have a budget for that, but needed to be fit so that we didn't have to do a 6-week fitness program. You got hay up your nose. So that was what we went out with. Didn't care what colour, what breed, none of that. Just needed to be fit, sound, ready to go and resaleable. So we scrolled through all the websites. It was when Facebook, you could still find horses on. He was advertised on Facebook, and we got a list of horses together, found a place where we could view as many horses as possible the following day. Went and viewed them. I tried a horse before him, then I tried him, got off him and was instantly like, no, this is the horse that I want. He's fantastic. So we got the owner accepted an offer. We were the first people to view him. We got a 2-stage vetting done. I think he'd done an event the previous day to me trying him, and he was still sound the following day, and he'd done it on the hottest day of the year. So that was feeling promising that he was a fairly sturdy horse. And yeah, we got this vetting done, and 5 days later we went to Eland Lodge BE80 because Mum had managed to get me a late entry. And we completed, didn't we? I think he'd done the other event with his previous owner and got like 40-something dressage, 4 poles down, show jumping, and 2 or 3 stops cross country. So I knew that we could probably get round, but it was a case of then improving from there. And then I think he went to Eland and did a 30-something dressage, 2 poles down, show jumping, and a clear cross country. So for a horse that had just moved house and completely changed rider and the works, he did a fantastic job. You were a really clever boy, weren't you? When we got him, so the previous owner had done a good job with him. She said she got him in a bit of a state, having bought him off of a Facebook auction site unseen. I think he's been passed from pillar to post a little bit in his life, so it's nice that he's found some security finally. And when she got him, he was completely head shy. You couldn't get near his head, you couldn't touch around his face and his eyes. He is now still a bit ear shy. Good boy. He's not a fan of you touching his ears, but even so, with a little bit of persuasion, we can. So if there's any issue, we can touch his ear now. But when we got him, he was like, take his bridle apart and rebuild it, and he was quite nervous. Overall, you were quite unpleasant to hack. He turned around and ran away. He's quite nice to hack now, thankfully. And yeah, I just thought I'd do some 80s, do some 90s, and then sell him. As it was, this guy is like my bestie. He's my comfy pair of slippers. I adore him. And it became quite apparent that he'd been passed from pillar to post quite a bit. And actually, he's such a nice horse that I didn't really want him to just get sold on unless it was a perfect home. So I grew very attached to him, as is my way, and he has not been sold. The 6-year-olds, one ended up had some hock issues and went as a hunter. In the end, a dressage horse and a hunter, like low-level hacking and dressage. And the other horse ended up retiring due to her injury, and she now has my foals. So both my 6-year-olds ended up going, and he ended up staying. So that's how life goes, isn't it, sometimes? And then since then, Titan has done all the pony club stuff with me, like the older pony club stuff. So we went to areas, we've been to pony club champs at 100 level, we've done some B100s. He's also had a couple of injuries over the years. He subluxated his sacroiliac in 2019 and ended up with a year off. He's got very good at dressage. To say he used to get 40s, he now gets sub 30 dressage. I mean, to be fair to him, he had a completely upside down neck when it came to muscle. What I mean by that is he was completely muscled here and had no top line here. So I suspect it was probably some poor use of draw reins at some point, and he used to be very shy of the bit, and he would tuck his chin behind the vertical to try and avoid getting yanked about, and he's much better at taking the contact now. So it's lovely to think about his progression over the years, and he's now 17 and he has a home for life. I never intend on selling him. I've done a few events so far this year on him. We're going to do some BD this winter. He's got one of my lovely clients, Gracie. She spends a lot of time riding him as well, and he's teaching her all the buttons, and he's just all round my comfy pair of slippers, and whatever is right for him is what we'll do now. He's been a wonderful horse. He's taken me further than I could have ever hoped for, And when chips hit the fan, it's not chips hit the fan, is it? It's when chips are down. Is that the word? When everything goes wrong, Titan is here and he fixes it for me. So that is him. He's 16 hands, his perfect sort of little stamp of a horse. He's an Irish sports horse. He's got a wonderful character. Like I say, he gets called Beastie lovingly or in frustration when he's being naughty, because he can just sort of run off when you're leading him. Only when he's out of work. He's a dobbin when he's in work. So he just likes his routine. And yeah, you're going to be an old boy now. He says, I am not old. I'm just coming of age. And he loves his food. And he can get a little bit tubby sometimes. And also last year, another video I linked in, he had a respiratory attack when it was the 40-degree heat, and we think he got a virus. We never completely got to the bottom of it, but touch some wood. Touch the door frame, thank you, good boy. He is much better now. There was a little bit of a panic that he might have some lasting asthma. That doesn't seem to be the case. I do soak his hay, just to make sure that there's no dust in it. Or I give him haylage for the majority of the winter. But other than that, you're all good, aren't you, bud? And he's very pretty. You're so pretty. You're perfect for pictures, so photogenic. So yeah, that is you. Okay, so that is the horses done, and I asked you guys for any question and answers on my YouTube and on my Instagram, and there's a lot of questions, so I'm going to whiz through them. I'm going to answer everything just in case I missed any bits, because I've not edited the video on the horses yet. So if I've missed anything, hopefully I'll cover it in your question and answers, and I'm going to do it fairly quick fire. I've got them written down. There's quite a lot to look at. I've written them down because I film on my phone, so I can't do it at the same time. So ages: Flint is 21, Titan is 17, Donut is 10, Maggie is 9. She's a baby. Breeds: Flint is a full Welsh section D. Titan is an Irish sports horse with a decent amount of thoroughbred blood in him, which you wouldn't think to look at him because he's quite round. Maggie is an Irish sports horse cross warm blood, and Donut is a full thoroughbred. History before purchasing the horses. I do think we've covered this, but Flint had done nothing other than chuck his riders off and be quite nervous. Titan had done an affiliated event. I think he'd also hunted. I think he's come from Ireland. Don't know the full history, but he'd done quite a bit, but also came quite nervous. Maggie had sat in a field. She'd been bought as a 2-year-old by Graham and Holly Smith from the Granenstown stud, and she came over, sat in a field, got backed, and then I think she had a holiday after being backed, and then they just sat on her just before I took her home. And Donut had been at a racing yard where he was bred. He was bred at that racing yard. I'm not sure they train anymore. I think they might just like pre-train the horses, and rather than being like full-blown racing yard. Was meant to be a national hunt horse. I think he had trained. He was certainly backed when his owner bought him, and I think they will have whizzed him up the gallops, because you know what it's like when thoroughbreds are backed. It's not like how we back sports horses. It's pretty much jump on and go. And then his previous owner bought him as a 4-year-old, and then he was with his previous owner for, that must have been 5 years, and had just done a little bit of bitting and bobbing and a bit of dressage type flat work schooling. Future plans for the horses. So Titan Titan gets to do what he likes, basically. Titan has a home for life. He has been an amazing horse for me. I absolutely adore the bones of him. Gracie, who's been riding him, is going to do a few competitions on him. I have plans of doing some BD on him. I think it would be a waste not to use his wonderful dressage schooling and his willingness. I'm not sure if I'm aiming him for badminton grassroots anymore or not. I'm going to have a little decide. He found Epworth slightly harder work. We'll see how it goes. Obviously, it was very, very hot and dusty at Epworth, but I'm kind of sat reevaluating my plans, and I'll probably do a video on like sort of reviewing my goals video, which I did at the start of the year, and sort of a recap and redirection, because by this we're like 7 months later, so we can see what we've achieved and see where we're going to next with the horses. But no, so basically Titan gets to do what he wants. He likes going on the lorry. As long as he's happy, I'm happy. He's got a home for life. Flint is semi-retired. Mum would like to hack him on her birthday. I was about to say which one. Big birthday. And yeah, he again gets to do what he wants. I ride him bareback to and from the field, happy as Larry. There are 2 old boys, they get spoilt. Future plans for Maggie, I want to keep moving up the grades. We'll see how she goes with that. I want to go international with her if I can. And likewise for Donut, really. There's a little inkling now where I'm kind of thinking, I've got my first double clear in for regional finals with Maggie. Because we've not got points yet, that means that we could potentially still do badminton grassroots. So it depends on if her next 100 run is double clear or not. And then I might take her to Frickley to do the badminton grassroots. Likewise with Donut, whether I get him a double clear at 100 or he's got a double clear at 90. So it's whether I go and do another 90 run. I'm not really sure. I'm not sure how committed I am to whether I want to go to badminton or not. I'm very committed to moving up the grades. Badminton's always been sort of there in the back of my mind, and I'm currently sat analysing whether I really want to go for it, because that's the thing. You're not going to get it unless you really go for it, are you? So that's that one. The personalities, oh my God. Flint is cheeky, chappy Houdini, and he'll very quietly cause trouble. I mean, I remember when he was younger, we tied him up to the trailer one day and he decided to chew the valve on the trailer and pulled it off. And he tried to put his foot on it to stop the air coming out. So he's quite funny. He very rarely panics, but he does cause havoc sometimes. He can open field gates. He can untie himself. He can do the works. Donut is cheeky and cute. He will try and undo your zip. He'll wave a bucket around. He'll take everybody's fly masks off. But he also loves love and cuddles. He is a hothead to ride. You know, you'll be dressage schooling him and he'll just decide he's just going, and it's a bit of a job to stop. And I know I keep saying I need to do a video on it so you guys can see, because actually when you get to a competition, that seems to be his favourite place, and he really settles down a lot there. But he tries so hard and he learns so fast. So that is him. He's basically just like a lovely, trainable, happy chappy. He's great to have around. Titan he's really funny. He's deceiving because he is so good sometimes and so easy-ozy. Like, everybody will see him out and about and they'll think, oh, he's just so gorgeous. And he is. He's wonderful. I love him. But he has a very strong opinion on life. And if you're doing something that he doesn't like, he doesn't like it. It's like also if you take anybody else out with Titan, he gets very cross if he gets left, and he there's no reasoning with him, I think, is kind of the answer to that. But when he's in happy mode, he's the most quiet, happy, easy ozy. I reckon I could do Liberty with him. Like, you take all of his tack off in the middle of the yard and you point to the stable and he goes in it. So yeah, and he's quite funny. You know when he's angry because he evil eyes you and sticks his ears flat back. And then Maggie is just a busybody. She cannot possibly stand still for any period of time. She, depending on when she's in season or not, depends on whether she hates you or she loves you. She's a proper mare. She's wonderful. You have her on side, she'll do anything for you, but she can be so strong and stubborn as well. But it's fantastic because I find when the horses come here, they get their personalities and they change. They almost seem to change. And I bet you guys find it with your horses as well, where once they start settling in, you see their quirks come out, and it's lovely. It's like living with a house full of different people. Every personality is different, and it's lovely to get to know them. Oh my God, I'm not very far down. Right, struggles. Let's go quickly. Struggle with Donut, trying to keep him slow enough when I'm trying to dressage school him at home. Struggle with Flint, trying to make sure he doesn't escape from anywhere. Struggle with Titan, probably the show jumping because he's so unorthodox in his jump and trying to leave stuff up. Although, to be fair, he was my first horse that I knew I could get from A to B quite safely over a fence, whereas every other horse I was kind of panicking about it stopping. So he's really helped me learn to see a stride and jump properly. Struggle with Maggie, her carefulness when she gets suspicious on the cross country, because I'm a careful rider, she's a careful horse. We have to both put our brave pants on. There we go, that's that one quickly done. Nicknames. Titan is Beastie. Maggie is Moo or Darling. Donut was meant to be Duncan, ends up being Donut, also ends up being called Donutty, and then Nutty when he's being a lunatic. Flint was called Clint initially, but we didn't like it, so we found a name that rhymed, so it's Flint. And he gets called Flinty and Tintums and all sorts of stupid names. We all have silly nicknames. Their energy. Titan, calming unless he's angry. Maggie, busy, live wire. Donut and Flint are basically both clowns. Their drink of choice if they wanted a cocktail. This is Amber. Amber's gone and shoved a load of funny questions in. Right, what would they drink if they were out drinking? I don't know. I don't go out drinking enough to know all of the drinks. I feel like Titan would be just like a standard lager. Maggie would be some sort of fancy G&T. Flint, oh God, I don't know. I think Flint would be like your really quirky person that would have some sort of cocktail going on, and you would not expect it because he's got that really high-pitched whinny that you don't expect out of him. So he's probably got a snazzy cocktail going on. And then Donut would probably be a soft drinks kind of guy because he knows that he's so clumsy that if he had a drink, he'd fall flat on his face. There we go. Which Harry Potter character would they be? I was thinking about this earlier when I saw it come through. Donut would be one of the Weasley brothers, Fred or George, definitely, because he's such a clown. Flint would be, what's his name? He'd be the accomplice to the Weasley brothers. Is it Lee Jordan? He'd be him. And then we're sticking with the Weasleys. Maggie would be Ginny. She'd be the annoying little sister that is actually surprisingly good at everything. And Titan had me stumped. He'd be Professor Lupin. He, that sort of wise person, but's got a wild streak about him. So Okay, back to slightly normaler questions now. Which horse is the smoothest to ride? Maggie. Maggie's got a really, really smooth jump and she just feels like you're flying, whereas Titan and Donut have to make a bit more effort because they don't have that sort of natural jump talent. If we're talking about galloping and travelling across the ground, obviously Donut, because he's a thoroughbred. So long-term goals. So I'm going to tie this in with another question of what's the highest level I think that we'll achieve with each horse, because it kind of goes hand in hand. I'm quite ambitious. I want to get as much as I can out of myself and my horses if they're happy to do so. So long-term goal with Flint and Titan is for them to be happy. Titan, I'd really like to qualify for some BD stuff, and I'm going to have a play at some dressage to music. So I'm going to have a go at making some music for him. And then with Maggie, long-term goal, highest level, I certainly want to go to 2-star. I'm sure we can do that. I need to get a bit more faith in myself. I need to make sure that she's trusting me and brave at novice, and then there's no reason why we shouldn't make the step to 2-star. What the highest level I think we'll achieve is, I want to reach for the stars. I'm not sure how high she'll go because it depends on how brave I can get her. She's getting braver and braver year on year, but there might just come a stage where she says, no, I don't like things jumping out at me cross country and having to assess it so quickly. So I hope we should manage at least intermediate. I feel like once we get our bravery around novice, that'll give us a good indicator as to where we're going next. Technically, on her ability, it's anything. She has enough jump for everything. We'd probably be quite slow because she doesn't have as much blood as some other horses, but her dressage ability and her jumping ability is infinite, really. So it just depends on what we can manage. Donut, I think we'll definitely go novice, should go 2-star. After that, it depends on his scope. And also, he's a thoroughbred and I've got him a bit later in life, so we're building up all the muscle now. Despite him being very sound as he is now, I don't know how long his body will hold up to it, so I will keep a very close eye on it. I don't want him to feel any discomfort that's unnecessary. So if it looks like novice is good and his limit, then we'll stick at novice 2-star. If he is just doing what he's doing now, I didn't know if he'd managed 100 last year, and he's gone 100 and he's like, yeah, easy. And the only reason I'm sticking him at the level, it's not because I don't think he's capable of the next level up, but bearing in mind I've had him a year and his mileage has all come in that year. He needs to get a bit more worldly and see more of the world. I'm not about to get ourselves jumping into a question where neither of us know the answer and then we get put in danger. I don't want that for either of us, because that's not what it's about. So we're just getting more mileage at 100 level, then we'll definitely go novice. He's definitely got scope for that, and we'll see from there. When we're talking about the bravery and the brain, Donut's certainly got the brain. Like I think if he keeps going as he's going and he keeps sound and all of those many factors that go around it, he could be a real dark horse to watch as to go moving up the grades. And then we have to find out for me whether I get scared at the higher levels or whether I can get over myself or not. But that will be interesting to see the journey, won't we? Where are we? Done those two. Okay, which supplement have we seen most success with? Okay, so with that, I don't really feed much supplements. I'm very happily feeding the Key Flow feeds, and I'm one of those people that likes research behind the supplements. So there's very few I feed, but I've got 2 down here. So this one, Titan had his respiratory issues last year. He doesn't seem to have ended up with anything long term, but he's always been slightly sensitive to pollen through the summer. So this year I went belts and braces and I got this. I don't know if it'll be flipped around or not. It's the Equine America Polonese extra strength powder. From reading the ingredients list, there's another one that has a different name and it almost looks like it's marketed to winter. I think they're the same thing and they've been marketed with different names, which is fine because you wouldn't necessarily buy something that you look like you want to use in the stable for pollen. But this has been fantastic. He started getting a little bit puffy at the start of the season when the pollen started coming in. Pollen has been ridiculously high this year, and once I got him onto that, he was much better. This is an empty pot, but you can see it's not just like a white powder either. It's obviously been very herby, and you can smell everything in it. And it's like, for me, I'm looking for the active ingredients when you're looking in the ingredients list, and it's all stuff that makes sense. So we've got eucalyptus, peppermint, nettles, garlic, blah blah blah, loads of useful bits when you're thinking respiratory, and you can really smell the eucalyptus when it's in there. So that has been fantastic. And then other than that, I actually always keep a bit of this in. So I've not really spoken about it, but I do have a discount code if anybody wants it. Just message me. It's called Reline GI. It's meant to be to help your horse's gastric health. I like it because the active ingredient, let me find it, is hyaluronic acid, and there's a lot of it in this. This is what vets also can use for joint health. So it acts as a bit of a general lubricant. So I think I've found it useful for all of the horses. You know, if the grass comes in a bit strong, and I've heard of people feeding it, you know, for maintenance after their horses have had ulcers and getting really good results. So I like it for a joint health supplement for Titan, and particularly when the grass comes in, because he always looks really bloated. It's not the cheapest supplement, but I think they've marketed it as that because it's got all of the research around it and it's got really strong active ingredients. But for me, who doesn't like to spend my money on supplements, I still find it worthwhile. And once he's loaded on it, I think he has a pump morning and night. So yeah, it's useful as a bit of a gastric buffer on their lining. When you actually read the research on it, it makes a lot of sense. I'm not going to go into it now because this video is 20 minutes long already. So yeah, message me about it. I'll talk to you about it if you have any questions. Donuts hoof care, good feed, good farriery. I can go into that in much more depth in the future, so I'll definitely do that. A year later, this time last year, honestly, he got to 2 weeks through his shoeing and his shoes started falling off. He is on key flow feeds, nothing fancy. I'll do another nutrition video soon because I've not updated that lately. And I've got a wonderful farrier where we look after his foot balance. He now manages 6 weeks on his shoes. So yes, definitely something worth talking about. Has Donut ever raced? No, but I think he's been up the gallops. And who is the favourite? And the person put, shh, we won't tell. So I adore them all equally, but I'm not going to give you a cop out here. So I adore every piece of their character and how different they are. No, none of the horses are the same here. They're all vastly different, which is fantastic. But when it comes to that real tight connection link, Maggie and I have a very different connection. And I think it's sometimes the thing that causes me the problem because I can't fake it until I make it when I'm sat on her. She knows exactly what I'm feeling. Whereas sometimes the boys actually help me out a little bit more. So I don't know whether it's necessarily the favourite, but the one that I've got the closest, tightest link in with, and people with mares will know that that often happens with mares, it is Maggie. But by the same token, I adore them all so much, and any one of them on any day can just brighten my day so much just by going and giving them a hug. So there we go, I've whizzed through that. My goodness, maybe I should do more often question and answer videos so that we can keep in the loop and keep going. I hope this has been interesting. I'm off to edit it now and it will be coming out tonight. So thank you so much for watching, guys. If you like the videos, make sure to give us a thumbs up and subscribe, and then you get to see more of them. And I will see you next time. Thank you so much. Bye.